Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Romali here with this week's weather. This is a new series that's going to be starting up on the channel, basically covering the entire week's worth from Sunday to Sunday worth of weather and kind of just a broad overview of what to expect across the United States and the tropics when, of course, it is hurricane season, which starts, by the way, in about 39 days. Getting close. But anyway, taking a look here across the United States, looking at the visible satellite imagery. We notice that most of the area is quiet today, with the exception of southern Texas, which we'll talk about here in a second, with this mesoscale convective complex that has been kind of wreaking havoc across portions of South Texas today, with some heavy rainfall, flooding concerns, and some pretty significant wind gusts across the area. Elsewise, most of the United States is quiet, got some clouds and isolated scattered showers up here across portions of the Northeast. But elsewise, the majority of the U.S. is quiet, which is certainly good. Looking at the watch warning map here across the United States, generally speaking, nothing of significance. We do have some severe weather concerns. We have a severe thunderstorm watch and a few severe thunderstorm warnings out here in far southern Texas. Actually, a lot of freeze concerns, though, out across the north. We have these cooler temperatures behind this area of low pressure, which you can kind of see up in here. Cooler temperatures are coming down on the back side of this system, and so there is some freeze concerns. You got some freeze warnings all the way down into portions of into portions of Kentucky, with a frost advisory. I believe that's a frost advisory right here, extending all the way across all the counties in Tennessee. But no significant concerns out here in the southeast, which is obviously some very good and welcome news. So today's severe weather threat, again, there's a enhanced risk for severe storms in far southern Texas today. Again, places like McAllen and Brownsville. Elsewise, no significant severe weather is expected across the entire rest of the United States today. In fact, this is the only area that will be watching for severe weather, at least for about probably the next few hours. If we actually look here at the radar, this was taken at about 12:50 p.m. We have most of the convection now moving offshore into the coastal waters of the Gulf of Mexico, but still a few significant severe thunderstorm warnings out here along this line, and this will be sagging its way southward towards Brownville over the next couple of hours. So really the exception for severe weather is going to be this far southwestern corner of Texas. Really this far southern extent of Texas here, from about Brownsville to near McAllen, for the remainder of today's weather event. So not really seeing much more of any significant severe weather. Still got some flooding concerns. And again, in the offshore waters, we're going to be seeing this convective complex move south and eastward, but this is no longer going to be a threat for any land interest, but marine interest, still make sure you're paying attention out there. Elsewise, the severe weather threat is diminishing, with the exception of this area from about Brownsville to McAllen, where there is going to be that threat for some severe weather as we progress throughout the next about 2.5 hours. Now, focusing on what's upcoming on Tuesday, this is the day 3 convective outlook. We have a slight risk for severe storms, generally from places like Houston and just to the north and east of San Antonio and to near Dallas, with a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk from south of Oklahoma City through Shreveport, Lafayette, Louisiana, and San Antonio and Austin, Texas. And we just have a general thunderstorm risk surrounding that. So there is some risk for severe weather here on Tuesday. This was originally that day 6 slight risk that we were talking about a few videos ago. Eventually that kind of got degraded, and now we're back to the standard slight risk here, level 2 out of 5 for those places that I just mentioned. Dallas to just near Austin and Houston, Texas are under the gun for some severe weather potential on Tuesday. So looking at the overall model forecast, what to expect? Well, generally speaking, we're looking at the dew points. Again, notice how the dew points are highest across South Texas today. We're going to be dealing with this front that is going to be sliding through, and it's going to be washing most of those higher dew points out into the Gulf of Mexico. We can see that with the exception of far southern Texas, you've got those dew points that are kind of washed out to the Gulf, but they're not completely washed out, which means that there's going to be lingering moisture setting up for Tuesday once you start to get that return flow. So this is Monday, about 15Z, so just a little after the early morning hours, about 10 a.m. And then we start to bring that moisture in during the morning hours on Tuesday. So this is about 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Eastern time. So, kind of subtract about an hour, off of those times, to get the central time. And you notice that moisture starts to increase. This is 12Z on Tuesday before our main event arrives. Dew points are up into the 60s in far southern Texas, still into the 40s out across the DFW area, so not significant moisture, but that moisture will surge northward, kind of just in time moisture as you start to kind of get that dry line / front to set up. And eventually you notice how that is going to be very confined to the southern Texas area. The moisture is not going to surge northward, but where you do get that higher moisture from about Dallas southward to near Houston, the severe weather potential is there, albeit it is a little bit less. That is convectively contaminated sounding, so we'll kind of see what we can get about 2 hours prior. We notice that this is definitely conducive for some severe weather. Again, very steep lapse rates here in the low levels, which will definitely contribute to some instability. Just about 180 3 Cape there, which means that there's going to be efficient low level instability to allow a lot of storms to go up. And generally speaking, somewhat curved photographs, mainly straight lines. So this seems to me more like a damaging wind and large hail threat. Again, with somewhat weak vertical shear, although there's definitely enough turning there to classify that as a modest shear environment. But definitely speaking, you will have the potential for some tornadoes. Definitely seeing more of a hail / wind threat with this, but we'll have to kind of keep tabs on that. And then this threat will kind of dwindle down with some threat kind of remaining out across portions of really western Louisiana. But the greatest threat is going to be here in central Texas, I do believe. And then that will kind of dwindle down. But what's going to be happening, and you saw the thumbnail for today's video, moving past this severe weather event, there's kind of another weather event, not severe weather related, but rainfall related. And that's when we jump into this. There is an increasing confidence in a heavy rainfall event shaping up for portions of the southeastern United States towards mid and late week. An area of low pressure that is going to be responsible for the severe weather threat on Tuesday out across Texas is going to be kind of sliding eastward. This is going to be a very weak, broad area of low pressure, meaning that the severe weather threat is going to be limited. However, there is the potential for some heavy rainfall, especially from places like Birmingham, Alabama, Mobile, southward into portions of the northern Florida Peninsula, and even into portions of Georgia and South Carolina, where you could probably see the heaviest rain. And I say probably because you notice that the confidence level in this forecast is somewhat low, although we are trending higher with confidence. This was made this morning. But generally speaking, we are still in that low to just entering that moderate confidence category that a potentially big heavy rainfall event could occur. When I say big, I don't mean, this, oh my God, significant, 10 inches of rain, but on the order of, some places that could receive 2 to maybe 5 inches of rain is not out of the question. If we look at some of the forecast models, this is the GFS total accumulated precipitation valid through next Sunday. You notice where there's not a lot of heavy rain in some areas out here across Alabama, but you do notice where there is some heavy rain, just about 3 inches there near Nashville, Tennessee, isolated, 4 near 5 inches, kind of near Waycross, Georgia, to the northwest of Jacksonville. Generally speaking, about 2 to 3 inches of rain, kind of as a total out across portions of South Carolina and Georgia, and some heavy rainfall along the coast of Florida. Now, if you compare that to what the European solution says, a lot more rain out across northern portions of Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, looking on the order of anywhere between 2.5 to 3 inches, with some amounts here in Florida totaling, especially near Tampa vicinity, totaling close to about 6.5 inches of rain. So again, it kind of just depends. This is not a super high confidence forecast, which means that, again, this forecast is subject to change, but generally speaking, you have a widespread potential for some heavy rainfall from places like Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, and Florida. And this might even have to be expanded a little bit further north, potentially into Tennessee as well, just depending on how the forecast all sets up. So, a lot to watch over the next couple of days, but generally speaking, we do not have any significant severe weather potential, at least for now. We can look at the GFS forecast, for example, and we'll just kind of look at the precipitation field coming off the GFS. But overall, for the next about week or so, you notice there's that heavy rain event, but there's not really a lot of severe weather potential. There might be some here towards next Saturday out across portions of the northern U.S. here, places, well, really the upper Midwest, and across the Ohio Valley, places like that may see a severe weather event according to the GFS here on the day Saturday. Again, this is a pretty low confidence forecast for now, and that could spark another round of potentially interesting weather out across portions of the Northeast, trailing cold front all the way down into Florida. If this were to verify, and potentially even seeing some freezing conditions entering the southeast U.S., but this also could just be the GFS cold bias that we all know that the GFS has. So we'll be watching this forecast, but overall, not seeing anything significant out across the remainder of the forecast period. We'll be watching again for that heavy rainfall event mid to late week, and then potentially some severe weather potential out across the Ohio Valley, and potentially that cold air coming southward as we progress throughout the end of the week 1 forecast. So we'll be watching all this, not really seeing any significant severe weather though in the short term. Again, right now we'll be dealing with that severe weather threat exiting Texas today, and then we'll be watching towards Tuesday for severe weather potentially out across Texas again, and then we'll be watching that heavy rainfall event and potential severe weather threat shaping up out across the Ohio Valley towards the end of the week 1 time frame. So, of course, if anything more major shapes up, we'll be having a more in-depth discussion on the severe weather potential. But elsewise, these weekly, videos titled, this week's weather, generally speaking, will be just a broad overview, and we'll kind of dive into the specific details of any severe weather or tropical weather threat that might shape up in between that week's worth of time frame. So that kind of gives just kind of a broad overview, and then we can work our way into more details. That way we don't have videos that are 20, 30, 40 minutes long. So with that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley, and I'll be talking to you guys again some more over the next upcoming week.